This business of professional wrestling is not always that, which leads us to ask, who is the most unprofessional wrestler and why is it the ghost of 90s Shawn Michaels? Lots of wrestlers have lost their minds and tried to injure their opponents in the ring, which makes no sense. It's very unprofessional, but we already did a whole list on that, so you be professional and go and watch that. For the sake of not boring you fine folk with repeating content, which is why the Montreal Screwjob, JBL beating up the Blue Meanie at One Night Stand 2005, The Rock nearly killing Mick Foley at the Royal Rumble, Shawn Michaels overselling for Hulk Hogan at SummerSlam, Perry Saturn beating up the Jobber so hard he fell in love with a f***ing mop. They won't be on this list, we promise. Please leave us alone. Instead, we're talking about other moments of wrestlers being deeply, deeply unprofessional, and it turns out there's just loads more we could talk about. Kind of makes you sad, really. I'm Adam, hailing from PartsFunKnown, and these are the 10 most unprofessional wrestling moments ever caught on camera. And you know what's really unprofessional? Not subscribing to PartsFunKnown. Do it. Please. Thank you. Number 10, Charlotte Flair drops the belt. Well, what in the blooming hell was this? How do you make a championship exchange segment even more unwatchable? This is how. Alright, context. Charlotte Flair was Raw Women's Champion. Becky Lynch was SmackDown Women's Champion. Both were drafted to opposite brands because WWE simply can't help themselves. A championship exchange was scheduled for the main event of SmackDown so the two champions can make sure their prop belts were color coordinated. The plan was for Becky Lynch to grab Charlotte's belt and declare herself Becky 2 belts as she'd done at WrestleMania 35, but Charlotte decided she wasn't gonna have that. Charlotte went against the script, pulling away from Lynch and dropping the belt to the mat. Charlotte wasn't done causing a ruckus on this night, as when Sasha Banks came out for her part in the segment, Charlotte once again went off script, interjecting and putting some heat back on herself. This all led to a heated confrontation between Lynch and Flair backstage, with Charlotte being escorted out of the building. Again, it's a sad situation. And what the blooming hell? Number 9, Bret Hart's Sunny Days. Shawn Michaels may be the biggest disturber WWE has ever had in the main event scene. There could be any number of 90s HBK moments on this list. His tantrum during his match with Vader at SummerSlam 96, keeping a lollipop in his mouth while Ken Shamrock had him in the ankle lock. All those times he wore those fucking shorts all come to mind, but the creme de la creme of show-stopping douchebaggery has to be his infamous Sunny Days comment aimed at Bret Hart. Enough has been said about Bret and Shawn's personal rivalry, but when you make a public comment on Raw insinuating that Hart was having an affair with Sunny, causing him great stress with his home life, perhaps you've achieved your place as the most unprofessional wrestler, Shawn. Especially because apparently Shawn Michaels was the one having Sunny Days, but that's alleged. Number 8, Austin Aries walks out of Bound for Glory 2018. A classic example of why you shouldn't always let it play out. Austin Aries has certainly developed a reputation for being a tad difficult to work with. He's been in and out of nearly every top promotion in the United States, and in 2018, he found himself in Impact Wrestling as Impact World Champion. After losing the title to Johnny Mundo Morrison Hennigan Nitro Impact in the main event of Bound for Glory 2018, Aries popped to his feet, completely no-selling the finish to the match, spit at Morrison before yelling obscenities towards the Impact top brass, flipping them off and storming out of the promotion never to return. There were many who thought this was a work where Aries would return to the promotion at a later date, but here we are with the clock having ticked past 3 years and it doesn't seem he's coming back. Number 7, Randy Orton is stupid. Imagine the alternate timeline where Kofi Mania took place at WrestleMania 26. If only he hadn't forgotten the finish of this one match. Kofi's supposed to stay down, get punted by Randy Orton, but he forgot and stumbled to his feet. Unfortunately for him, this small mistake basically killed his entire push, a Money in the Bank win at Mania, because Randy Orton hit a particularly frustrated RKO on him before yelling stupid. Of course, Randy could have just reminded Kofi of the spot and then hit it. Not sure throwing a fit on camera and killing the biggest push of a young talent was entirely necessary. Orton has had several outbursts on camera over the years, flipping off the fans at Night of Champions 2011, giving the old Spaceball salute at Hell in a Cell 2009, and taking a big swing at Mr. Kennedy after Kennedy dropped him on the back of his head accidentally. Although that one's maybe a bit more understandable. What happened after it wasn't, though. Oh, Randy, please don't kill me. Number 6, Oklahoma. Well, here is some bullshit. There is quality heel heat, and then there is mean-spirited trash like this. Jim Ross is a talented and well-respected man in general. Furthermore, he was an executive and commentator for WWE and not at all relevant to what was happening on WCW in 1999 when Ed Ferrara went out on Nitro doing a highly disrespectful impression of Ross called Oklahoma, complete with a scrunched-up face and southern accent. Ferrara mocked Ross's Bell's palsy, which had recently nearly ended his career, because that is a super cool thing to do to another human being that, again, has nothing to do with your TV show. The whole thing is just gross. Ferrara and Vince Russo had come from WWE where they had butted heads with Ross because, well, Ross understands wrestling and Russo checks notes didn't. This is peak unprofessional behavior in WCW, which was the meeting place of the Unprofessional Wrestlers Coalition. See also Bash at the Beach 2000. Number 5, Bob Holly beats up Matt Cappotelli. The more barbaric ways of wrestling training seem to be a thing of the past. That is a good thing with the horror stories you hear from wrestlers of generations past. The hazing culture of wrestling saw many trainers break the bones of their trainees just to make the point of you need to be, quote, tough, quotes, enough to make it in the business. While wrestling is very difficult, yes, virtually everyone involved in the 3rd season of Tough Enough agreed that Bob Holly's treatment of Matt Cappotelli was incredibly excessive. Holly was described as being stressed following his broken neck and took out his aggression on Cappotelli, who had spent that day being excessively jovial in training. A true crime in WWE locker rooms. How dare he? Holly decimated Cappotelli, booting him in the jaw and again in the eye, leaving his face bruised, bloody, and swollen. It is incredibly gross and a remnant of a past generation that belongs in the past. Number 4, Wendy Richter versus the Spider Lady. The Montreal Screwjob could very easily be on this list and falls under the category of everything Shawn Michaels did in the 90s and also the category of things we talk about way too much. This one, on the other hand, can make an appearance because, well, it is the original Screwjob. After all, Vince McMahon wanted to get the WWF Women's Championship off Wendy Richter because she started asking questions about why she wasn't being paid similar to Hulk Hogan, and obviously, you've just got to go at that point. See also Ultimate Warrior. To get the title off her, Vince put the fabulous Moolah in a full bodysuit, calling her the Spider Lady. To this day, I'm not sure how you could wrestle a match with 62-year-old fabulous Moolah and not know it was her, but I digress. In a more traditional Screwjob where the audience isn't supposed to know that any tomfoolery was taking place, Moolah pinned Richter and did not let her up, before being unmasked and then sort of just wandering away, and everything is really awkward and bad. This is also totally unnecessary, and by today's standards, it's ridiculous that these measures had to be taken when you could just, I don't know, pay your top women's star better because you're putting her in all the cartoons. Just don't be a dick. Number 3, Ivelisse versus Thunder Rosa. Ivelisse is a pretty damn good wrestler, but collects drama like a seagull collects chips from unsuspecting tourists. Stories of backstage conflict involving Ivelisse have abounded in promotions including Shine, Lucha Underground, WCPW, but the most public being the heat surrounding her departure from AEW. Ivelisse was released from the company in April this year after backstage fallout and ill feeling, some of which stemmed all the way back to a match months before between Ivelisse and Thunder Rosa on the September 16th episode of Dynamite. The match was mostly great and very hard-hitting, although it's since come out that the reason why it was so stiff was that both women were displeased after Ivelisse objected to Rosa being the one to lead the match. For the most part, the beef is hidden, or at least disguised as kayfabe violence, but there's no hiding one moment of obvious unprofessionalism from Ivelisse. Rosa rolls her to the mat, where Ivelisse just sits there, pissed off, wiping the hair from her eyes, almost shrugging, just waiting to be put in a full Nelson. A kayfabe shattering display. Number 2, New Jack versus Mass Transit. New Jack's appeared on a whole bunch of our lists of wrestlers doing just the worst things, mostly for his horrifying attack on Vic Grimes, but by golly, he does this sort of thing so much it still necessitates a spot on this one, specifically for the equally horrific Mass Transit incident. The infamous story goes that Eric Koulas lied about his age, falsified his documentation to get booked on an ECW show as a replacement for Axl Rotten, working under the name Mass Transit. In reality, the 17-year-old was not trained and went to the ring to wrestle New Jack, which is the wrestling equivalent of an overzealous teenager climbing into a tiger exhibit at the local zoo to check his fucking dental work. Also, the tiger might have been nicer than New Jack. Mass Transit was going to bleed in the match, and New Jack took the liberty of taking care of that for him, cutting his head with an X-Acto knife. The whole match saw New Jack and ECW being taken to court for assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. If that doesn't scream not a professional, then I don't know what does. And number 1, Victory Road. Jeff Hardy has for the most part conquered his famous demons, except that really weird one that has a kink for umbrellas, but there's no two ways about it. Wrestling is really f***ing dangerous. At the best of times, when everyone's on the ball doing the job to the best of their abilities, accidents can still happen that carry disastrous consequences, so showing up to wrestle intoxicated is pretty much the most unprofessional thing a wrestler can do. Alicia Fox showed up too inebriated to perform at a WWE house show, and that was really bad. Alberto El Patron once showed up to a WCPW show drunk and had to be pulled from the card at the last minute. Can confirm I was there. But Jeff Hardy showed up to wrestle in the main event of a TNA pay-per-view, visibly far gone, in no shape shape to compete, and it tops them all. At Victory Road 2011, Jeff Hardy was set to face Sting, but got high, drunk, or both backstage. He stumbled down to the ring so clearly out of it that referee Earl Hebner almost immediately threw up the X. Eric Bischoff came out to stall for time because everyone was panicking. Sting was forced to pin Jeff Hardy hard way amidst cries of bullshit, to which Sting responds, on camera, I agree. No one really looks good from this story, not Jeff, not Dixie Carter, who refused backstage to pull the match. It's just a really sad day for unprofessional wrestling. And that's our list. What do you consider to be the most unprofessional moment in professional wrestling? Let us know, and don't forget to like and share this video around if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to PartsFunKnown for more silly wrestling content. Jam that jam.